Okay, let's talk about something real. You know that weird sinking feeling you get right after you buy something? Even something you were really excited about. One minute, you're stoked, and the next, this wave of guilt just washes over you. I used to think that meant I was just, bad with money. But it turns out it's way more complicated and a lot more human than that.
You know the voice I'm talking about, right? The one in your head that whispers, should you have done that? Or, that was so irresponsible. For years, that little voice was my constant companion every single time I tapped my card. So if you've been there, trust me, you are so not alone.
So here's the most important thing to get right off the bat. Feeling that guilt isn't some personal failing. Nope. It's actually a really common emotional response. It's rooted in psychology, societal pressure, and even just how our brains are wired. Understanding why we feel this way is the first real step to breaking free from it.
All right, so let's dive into this. To get to the bottom of this feeling, we've got to go back, like way back. A lot of our feelings about money started taking shape when we were kids, and we formed these little subconscious rules we didn't even know we were learning.
Psychologists have a name for these. They call them money scripts. You can think of them as this invisible financial rulebook that you inherited. They're these quiet beliefs just running in the background, guiding every single spending decision you make today, and you probably don't even realize it's happening.
Do any of these sound familiar? Money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that. These are the kinds of messages so many of us heard growing up. And if your childhood home had a lot of financial stress, you might have developed what's called a scarcity mindset, where deep down, you just feel like there's never going to be enough.
And that scarcity mindset leads to this thing called loss aversion. It basically means your brain is wired to feel the pain of losing money way more intensely than the happiness you get from whatever you bought. So every time you spend, it starts to feel like a loss, and that's where all that anxiety comes from.
So, that's the past, but what about what's happening right here, right now? It's not just our childhood scripts messing with us. Our current emotions play a huge part in creating this cycle of spending and guilt that can feel totally impossible to escape.
It usually goes something like this. You're feeling stressed, maybe lonely, or even just bored. So you make an impulse buy for that quick dopamine hit, little retail therapy. But that high is so temporary, and when it fades, what's left? Guilt, maybe some shame, and now, even more financial stress than you started with. It is a vicious, vicious loop.
The psychology behind that guilt is actually pretty fascinating. It's a concept called cognitive dissonance. That's the mental stress you feel when your spending just doesn't line up with your values or your big picture goals. That guilt is literally your brain screaming at you that there's a conflict between what you just did and who you want to be.
And as if our own internal psychology wasn't enough to deal with, the world we live in today just pours gasoline on that fire. I'm talking about the digital world and how it feels like it's designed to make us feel inadequate.
You're just scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, and you get bombarded with this stuff. What I spend in a day videos, massive luxury hauls, these picture-perfect lives that seem so effortless. It's this constant stream of content that just completely warps our perception of what's normal.
This has actually led to a really modern problem called money dysmorphia. It's where you feel super insecure about your own money, no matter what your bank account actually says, because you're always comparing yourself to these fake, perfectly curated online lives. It can make your own responsible financial choices feel kind of shameful. It's wild.
And of course, it all fuels FOMO, the fear of missing out. It is such a powerful driver that pushes us to spend money we might not have, just to feel like we're keeping up. And this often leads to debt, which then just creates an even heavier cycle of guilt.
Okay, so we've unpacked the problem. It's a lot, I know. But here is the really good news. You are not stuck. The answer isn't some miserable restrictive budget. It's about a total mindset shift. It's about taking back control in a way that actually feels good. Just look at the difference in mindset here. Old school budgeting is all about restriction and telling yourself no, which is why it often leads to guilt when you slip up. But the alternative, conscious spending, is the complete opposite. It's about empowerment, focusing on what you value and spending with intention. It's about saying yes to the right things. So, how do you actually start? First, just change the language. You're not budgeting anymore, you're spending intentionally. Second, get really clear on what you truly value. Is it experiences, security, helping others? Then start asking if your spending lines up with those things. And third, and this is key, you have to create a pause. A super effective way to create that pause is something called the 30-day rule.
For any non-essential purchase, just wait a month. That's it. This gives that emotional impulse time to fade. And you'll find that, more often than not, the desire was just fleeting. You've just broken that emotional spending cycle, cold.
Now, putting this into practice consistently, that's the real challenge, right? The journey from guilt to empowerment really comes down to one thing: clarity. And thankfully, this is where technology can actually be a huge help instead of another source of stress. Look, to spend intentionally, you need a clear, judgment-free picture of where your money is actually going. This is where tools designed for this new way of thinking, like SenseFi, come into play. They're built to be a partner in gaining that clarity, not just another boring budgeting app.
So here's how a tool like this helps. An AI dashboard gives you that instant, clear picture without all the tedious manual tracking. And features like a needs versus wants analysis are literally designed to help you see if your spending actually aligns with your values. The whole point is to turn that feeling of financial confusion into simple, straightforward clarity.
Because once you turn that ambiguity into clarity, spending is no longer a source of anxiety. It becomes a deliberate, empowering choice. If you want to see what I mean, you can check out SenseFi for yourself and get started for free.
So I'll leave you with this question. Instead of thinking about what you need to cut back on, what's one thing in your life that you truly value, that's absolutely worth spending on, completely guilt-free? Really thinking about that is the first step to building a healthier and honestly a happier relationship with your money.